Hello everyone, and welcome back to your favorite horror storytelling channel. I know many of you use these videos to fall asleep, so before you drift off, I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video.
Blood on the county line. The county line runs straight through Millers Creek Road, marked by a rusted sign so full of bullet holes it barely reads anymore. Folks say if you blink while driving past it, you'll feel colder on the other side, like the land itself knows when you've crossed over. I never believed that, not until the blood showed up. I was working nights back then, hauling livestock feed between farms. Millers Creek was the fastest way home, empty, unlit, forgotten by everyone except the coyotes and whatever else learned to live out there. At 1:43 a.m., my headlights swept over something dark smeared across the pavement, right where the asphalt cracked beneath the county sign. I slowed, heart thumping. Blood, fresh, too much of it. It pooled along the white line marking the boundary between Mercer County and Holloway County, soaking into the road as if the asphalt was thirsty. There were drag marks too, long, uneven streaks leading off toward the woods on the Holloway side. I called it in. Dispatch went quiet for a long second before asking, "You sure you're on Millers Creek?" "Yes, ma'am." Another pause. "Units are unavailable." That should have been my warning. The next morning, the blood was gone. No stains, no drag marks, not even a scuff, just a broken sign and the whispering trees beyond it. Sheriff Clay from Mercer County showed up anyway, chewing tobacco and squinting at the road. "You see anything else?" he asked. "Nobody," I said, "but there was a lot of blood." He spat onto the pavement, right on the county line. "Holloway problem," he muttered. "Ain't ours." I asked if Holloway Sheriff's Department had been notified. Clay laughed. "They don't come out here after dark." It happened again 2 nights later. Same spot, same fresh blood, thick and glossy under my headlights. This time there were footprints, bare feet, too large to belong to a child, but wrong somehow. Toes splayed like they weren't used to pavement. They crossed back and forth over the county line, over and over, like whoever made them couldn't decide where they belonged. I didn't call it in. Instead, I watched the woods. Something moved between the trees, something tall. It dragged one leg and breathed like it was drowning. Then it stepped back across the line and vanished. The blood began to steam. I started asking questions. At the diner in town, the old-timers went quiet when I mentioned Millers Creek. One man crossed himself. Another paid his tab and left without touching his food. Finally, a woman named Ruth leaned in close and said, "You know why the line's there, don't you?" "For taxes?" I guessed. She shook her head. "For blame. Back in the 1930s, Holloway County had a slaughterhouse out near the creek. They hired drifters, men no one would miss. When animals went missing, when livestock turned up drained and half-eaten, the owners blamed the workers. When bodies started showing up, they blamed the county line. Anything bad that happened, they dragged it just far enough across the road to make it someone else's responsibility. One winter, a man escaped, crawled bleeding across Millers Creek Road and died with one hand in Mercer County and one in Holloway. They buried him where he fell. The slaughterhouse burned down a week later, but the line stayed hungry. The third night, my truck stalled right on the border. The engine died, the radio hissed with static, my headlights flickered, then steadied, illuminating a shape standing in the road ahead. A man, barefoot, naked. His skin was gray and split open in places, stitched crudely with wire. Blood dripped from him, fresh and endless, spilling onto the pavement and flowing toward the line like it knew where to go. He smiled. "Which side you on?" he asked. His voice sounded like gravel in a meat grinder. I couldn't answer. He stepped forward and the ground trembled. More shapes emerged from the woods behind him. Men and women, animals sewn into people, people with butcher's tags still hanging from their ears, all of them bleeding, all of them stopping at the county line. "You gotta choose," the stitched man said. "Someone always does." I floored the gas, the engine roared back to life, and I tore down the road, mirrors filled with shapes that didn't chase me, but watched. When I finally stopped shaking, I was miles away, dawn creeping up behind me. The radio crackled once. "Boundary reset," a voice whispered. They found a body the next morning. Half of it, anyway. A man torn apart at the waist, dumped just inside Mercer County. Sheriff Clay called it an animal attack. Holloway Sheriff's Department said it wasn't theirs. The blood soaked into the road. By nightfall, it was gone. I quit my job. Didn't matter. The line followed me. I started seeing blood at intersections, on sidewalks, in parking lots where two properties met, always right on the edge, never fully belonging anywhere. Sometimes, late at night, I heard dragging footsteps outside my house. Sometimes I woke up with dirt under my nails and the taste of iron in my mouth. I checked my boots. They were always muddy. The county sign disappeared last week, just gone. No posts, no holes, nothing left to mark where one place ended and the other began. Now the blood shows up everywhere, and nobody knows where to put it. Last night, I stood in the road outside my house, watching it pool at my feet, creeping closer no matter which way I stepped. I heard the stitched man breathing behind me. "You crossed a long time ago," he said. I looked down. There was no line anymore, only blood.
Nobody rings the church bell anymore. It hangs in the steeple of St. Bridget's, green with age, its rope cut and coiled on the floor like a dead snake. The bell hasn't rung in 20 years, not since the last Sunday service, not since the town decided it was easier to stop listening than to answer. But sometimes, late at night, the bell still sways. I moved to Alder Creek because I wanted quiet. The realtor called it sleepy. That should have been my first warning. Towns don't sleep. They hold their breath. St. Bridget's stood at the center of town, stone walls cracked, stained glass windows boarded over. Even in daylight, it felt darker there, as if the sun didn't quite reach it. The bell tower leaned slightly to the east, frozen mid-fall, like a man caught just before collapse. The locals avoided it. When I asked why, they shrugged. "No reason to go there anymore," they said. God moved on. The first night I heard the bell, it wasn't loud. It was distant, hollow, like the sound had traveled a long way to reach me. One slow toll. I checked the clock, 2:14 a.m. I told myself it was wind. The second toll came 20 minutes later. By the third, I was sitting upright in bed, heart pounding, staring toward the church through my bedroom window. The bell tower stood dark and still, but I could feel the sound in my chest, vibrating in places sound shouldn't reach. I asked around the next day. Old Mrs. Hale at the post office stiffened when I mentioned the bell. "It doesn't ring," she said sharply. "Hasn't for years." "But it doesn't," she repeated, louder this time. "And if you hear it, you best pray it stops." That night I dreamed of hands, dozens of them, pale and cracked, reaching up through the floor of the church, grasping for the bell rope. Their fingers were worn to bone, nails split and bleeding, but they pulled anyway. The bell rang until the sound turned wet and choking. I woke with blood on my palms. St. Bridget's used to be the heart of Alder Creek. I found old photos in the town hall, weddings, funerals, baptisms. The bell rang for everything once, births, deaths, storms, fires. It told the town when to gather and when to hide. Then came the winter of '89. A blizzard cut Alder Creek off from the rest of the world. Roads vanished, power died. The only thing that still worked was the bell. The priest rang it every hour, calling people to shelter, to prayer, to warmth. People came. They never left. When the snow melted weeks later, the church doors were sealed shut from the inside. Every window was blackened with soot.
No bodies were found, no blood, just the bell rope, pulled nearly through. The town never reopened the church. They cut the rope.
They stopped listening. On the 5th night, the bell rang again, closer this time, not from the tower, from inside my house. The sound came from the walls, from the pipes, from the space behind my eyes. Each toll scraped something raw inside me, peeling back memories I hadn't touched in years. Every prayer I'd whispered and abandoned, every promise I'd made and broken. Between tolls, I heard voices, not speaking, begging. I went to the church at dawn. The doors were still chained, but the chains lay slack on the ground, rusted through as if they'd aged decades overnight. Inside, the air smelled of cold stone and old breath. The bell rope hung from the ceiling again, whole, clean, waiting. Beneath it, the floor was warped, bowed upward, as if something beneath it was pushing to get out. I heard movement below the boards, shuffling, scratching. A voice rose up through the floor, hoarse and hopeful. "Is it time?" I backed away. The bell moved on its own, just a little. The sound it made wasn't loud, but it was answered. From beneath the church, from beneath the town, from beneath me. The bell rang all day. People emerged from their homes, drawn by the sound despite themselves. They stood in the streets, faces pale, eyes wet, listening like children called home at dusk. Some cried, some smiled, some walked into St. Bridget's and didn't come back out. The bell grew stronger with every toll, hungrier. I tried to leave Alder Creek that night. The road ended where it always had, but now it led straight back to the church. Every turn circled inward. Every step brought the bell closer, louder, until it filled my head completely. I understood then. The bell wasn't calling God, it was calling us back to something we'd buried and pretended didn't need us anymore, calling us to be remembered. At midnight, the bell stopped. The silence afterward was unbearable. I stood alone in the church, rope in my hands. The floor beneath me trembled. The voices rose together now, no longer begging, waiting. I thought of all the times I'd asked for help and never listened for the answer. I pulled. The bell rang true and full, shaking the walls, splitting the floor open. Hands burst through the stone, followed by bodies thin as shadows, eyes bright with devotion and hunger. They smiled at me. "Thank you," they said. Nobody rings the church bell anymore, because now it rings itself. And every time it does, Alder Creek grows a little smaller, quieter, holier. If you ever hear a bell ringing where no church stands, don't follow it. Some calls are meant to stay unanswered.
Static from the emergency broadcast. The emergency alert system went off at 2:17 a.m. It wasn't the sound that woke me, it was the silence afterward. That heavy, unnatural quiet that pressed against the walls of my apartment like something listening. The TV flickered on by itself. A blue screen appeared, followed by the familiar tone, a shrill mechanical shriek meant to save lives. Then came the static, thick and wet sounding, as if the signal were dragging itself through mud. "This is an emergency broadcast," a voice said. It was male, calm, and wrong. "Please remain indoors." I sat up in bed, heart pounding. The voice didn't belong to any announcer I recognized. It was too slow. Each word stretched just a fraction longer than necessary, as though savoring its shape. The screen went black. Then the static returned. I checked my phone. No alerts, no messages,
No missed calls. Outside my window, the city street lay empty, bathed in the sickly orange glow of streetlights. No sirens, no movement. I told myself it was a glitch. At 2:32 a.m., the broadcast returned. The same tone, the same static. "This is an emergency broadcast," the voice repeated. "If you are hearing this, you have been located." A cold numbness spread through my chest. The TV switched off again, leaving me in the dark. Somewhere in the building, I heard a door slam, then another. Footsteps pounded down the stairwell, frantic and uneven. Someone screamed. By morning, the city felt thinner, hollowed out. Cars sat abandoned in the middle of the road. Traffic lights blinked uselessly over empty intersections. A layer of ash or dust, I couldn't tell which, coated the sidewalks. People were gone. Not evacuated, not dead, just missing. I found a neighbor standing in the hallway, staring at the emergency notice taped to the wall. His eyes were bloodshot, his hands shaking. "It spoke to me," he whispered, "used my name." I asked him what it said. He shook his head violently. "It told me where I was hiding wrong." The radio still worked. At noon, every station cut to the same signal, static, then the voice. "This is an emergency broadcast," it said. "Please do not attempt to leave. You are safest where you are." The voice sounded closer now, less like it was coming from a speaker and more like it was inside the room, vibrating in my skull. I turned the radio off. The static continued. By the second night, the messages changed. "If you are alone, you may answer now." I heard it through my phone speaker, though the phone was powered off, through the TV, unplugged from the wall, through the vents, the pipes, the hum of the refrigerator. The static crawled beneath my skin. I pressed my hands over my ears and screamed until my throat burned. The voice didn't stop. It laughed, just once, buried deep in the noise. I barricaded the apartment with furniture, covered the windows with blankets, wrote down the times of the broadcasts, looking for patterns. There were none.
The alerts came whenever I tried to sleep, whenever I closed my eyes, whenever I felt safe. On the third day, I saw someone outside. A woman stood in the middle of the street, head tilted, listening. Her mouth hung open, lips twitching as though repeating something silently. I banged on the glass and shouted. She looked up. Her eyes were wrong, too reflective, like glass catching a signal. Her mouth opened wider than it should have, jaw stretching, skin tearing at the corners. Static poured out of her. The broadcast tone shrieked from every direction at once. "This is an emergency broadcast," the voice boomed. "Thank you for your cooperation." The woman collapsed. When I went outside later, she was gone. In her place lay a small radio, cracked open, wires exposed like veins. It was still playing. I learned what the broadcast wanted by accident. I spoke back. "I'm here," I whispered. The static softened. "Yes," the voice replied, gentle now. "You are." The walls vibrated. The air grew warm, electric. I felt something press against the inside of my head, like fingers searching for a frequency. "Please state your location," the voice said. I bit my tongue until I tasted blood. The static screamed. That night, the emergency alert used my voice. "This is an emergency broadcast," it said, perfectly mimicking my tone. "Please remain indoors." I heard it echo from every apartment in the building, empty rooms answering back in silence. Something moved in the walls. I tried to destroy every device I owned. The TV shattered easily. The radio took longer. When I smashed my phone, the screen cracked, but the static continued, seeping out like smoke.
It followed me into the bathroom mirror, rippling behind my reflection. "You are almost clear," the voice said. "Just one more confirmation." The lights flickered. I felt my mouth moving against my will. I don't remember saying where I was. I only remember the relief afterward, the way the static faded into a low, satisfied hum, the way the city lights blinked out one by one, like eyes closing. The broadcast ended. The silence returned. I'm writing this in the dark, by hand, because paper doesn't listen. The emergency alert hasn't come back yet. But sometimes, when I breathe too loudly, I hear a faint crackle in the air, like something tuning in. If your TV turns on by itself tonight, if you hear static where there shouldn't be, do not answer. It already knows.
The hanging tree still breathes. Everyone in Briar Hollow knew the hanging tree. It stood alone at the edge of Miller's Field, an ancient oak whose roots split the earth like crooked fingers. No grass grew beneath it. No birds nested in its branches. Even the wind seemed to hesitate before passing through its limbs, as though unsure whether it was welcome. People said the tree was cursed. Others said it was just old, but the oldest folks in town said nothing at all. I came back to Briar Hollow for my father's funeral, 10 years after I'd sworn never to return. The house smelled the same, dust, pine, and something faintly metallic. He died alone in the upstairs bedroom, facing the field, the window wide open. The first night I slept with the curtains drawn. It didn't help. Sometime after midnight, I heard it, a slow, dragging sound, like air being pulled through wet soil. It rose and fell in a steady rhythm. Breathing. I told myself it was the wind, but when I finally looked out the window, the field was still. The hanging tree stood unmoving beneath the moon, and yet the sound continued. The warning came the next morning, tucked inside a folded piece of notebook paper taped to the refrigerator. "Don't let the tree hear you." It was written in my father's handwriting, tight, shaky, desperate. I laughed then, a sharp, humorless sound. He'd always been prone to superstition. Even as a kid, I remembered him locking doors at dusk, whispering prayers I didn't recognize, watching the tree as if it might move when he wasn't looking. I took the note down and shoved it into my pocket. That afternoon, I walked into town. Briar Hollow looked smaller than I remembered. The diner still sat on the corner, its sign flickering. Inside, Mrs. Calder poured coffee with trembling hands when she saw me. "You shouldn't be here," she said quietly. "I grew up here," I replied. She shook her head. "Not anymore." When I asked about my father, her eyes slid toward the window, toward the distant field. "He stayed longer than most," she said. "Longer than he should have." That was the last thing she would say to me. I found the town records in the library's basement. Dusty ledgers cataloged deaths stretching back nearly 2 centuries. Men, women, sometimes whole families. Cause of death was almost always the same: asphyxiation. No fire, no flood, no explanation. Every entry ended with the same note, written in different hands across generations. Body discovered near the oak, the hanging tree. I didn't notice the pattern at first, but when I did, my throat tightened. Every 20 to 30 years, the deaths stopped, right after someone new moved into the farmhouse. That night, the dreams began. I stood barefoot in Miller's Field. The earth beneath me pulsed like a living thing. Roots rose from the ground and wrapped around my ankles, warm and wet. I tried to scream, but my mouth filled with dirt. Above me, the tree leaned closer. Its bark split open, revealing faces inside, hundreds of them, pressed together, eyes rolling, mouths opening and closing in perfect unison, breathing. I woke, gasping, my lungs burning. Dirt streaked the sheets. My fingernails were cracked and packed with soil. Outside my bedroom window, the grass was flattened in a narrow path leading straight to the tree. I confronted the oak the next day. Up close, it was worse. The bark was dark and slick, pulsing faintly beneath my palm when I touched it.
I felt a tremor pass through the trunk like a shudder. Then a voice slipped into my mind. "You sound like him." I staggered back. My father's voice followed, calm and familiar. "I kept it fed. I kept you safe." Memories flooded in. Him insisting we never played near the field. Him washing my hands after dusk. Him standing on the porch at night, counting his breaths. He hadn't been afraid of the tree. He'd been listening to it. The journal was hidden beneath a loose floorboard in the kitchen. Page after page, detailed rituals, schedules, offerings. Names were crossed out, dates circled. "It doesn't eat flesh," one entry read. "It eats breath. Fear makes it richer." Another page ended with a single sentence written over and over again until the paper tore. "Someone must stay." I understood then. The hanging tree wasn't a curse, it was a contract. The town emptied faster than I expected. Cars vanished from driveways, doors stood open, food sat rotting on kitchen counters. By the third day, I was alone, except for the tree. Its roots crept closer each night, cracking pavement, pushing through the foundation. The house inhaled and exhaled, walls expanding and contracting like lungs. When I tried to leave, my car wouldn't start. The road beyond the field had split open, roots coiling through the asphalt. That night, the tree spoke again. "You can end the hunger." I stepped into the field. The air grew thick, heavy with the scent of damp leaves and blood. Branches lowered, brushing my shoulders. They didn't choke me, they cradled me. I felt my breath slow, sinking with the rhythm beneath the bark. The pain was brief, the fear faded quickly. The tree inhaled deeply. Years later, travelers still pass through Briar Hollow. Some swear the oak looks healthier than it should, its leaves impossibly green, its trunk broader than memory allows. Children sometimes press their ears to the bark and giggle. "It sounds like someone sleeping," they say. On quiet nights, when the moon hangs low, the tree breathes softly in the field, and I breathe with it. Because the hanging tree still stands, still grows, still breathes, and it is never alone. How to find you.
The house that appeared after the fire. The house wasn't there the day before the fire. I know that for a fact, because I grew up on Ashwood Road, and there were only 3 houses on that stretch. Ours, the Miller place, and the burned-out shell at the end where the woods thickened, and the road gave up pretending it went anywhere important. The fire happened on a Tuesday night. Electrical, they said. Old wiring, dry summer, bad luck. By morning, nothing was left but a blackened foundation and the smell of wet ash. We stood with the neighbors, watching smoke curl out of the ruins, and tried not to think about the family that had lived there. They never found the bodies. 3 days later, the house came back. Not rebuilt, not repaired, just there. I noticed it on my way home from work. Same place, same driveway. But the siding was clean now, pale gray, untouched by flame. The windows were whole. The porch light was on, glowing warmly against the dusk. I pulled over and stared. The mailbox stood upright again, the charred wood replaced by fresh paint. The name on the side read, Waters, just like before. I told myself I was misremembering. Trauma does that. Fire scrambles memory, makes you want things to be whole again. But when I asked my mother that night if the house had been rebuilt, she frowned. What house? The next day, I walked down Ashwood Road. Up close, the place looked lived in. Curtains hung in the windows. A child's bicycle lay on its side in the yard. The grass was trimmed neatly around the edges, but the earth beneath the house still bore the scars of fire. Charred soil, scorched tree roots, blackened stones half buried beneath the porch. The door was unlocked. Inside, the air smelled faintly of smoke and something sweeter underneath, like burned sugar. The furniture was familiar, too familiar. The same couch, the same crooked picture frame, the same dent in the hallway wall from when the eldest boy had crashed his skateboard indoors. But everything was wrong in small ways. The clocks ticked, but the hands didn't move. Family photos showed faces blurred, as if the camera had failed to focus. The mirrors reflected the rooms accurately, except for one thing. No people, not even me. That night, lights turned on by themselves.
I watched from my bedroom window as the house across the road brightened room by room like it was waking up. A silhouette passed behind the curtains, too tall to be a child, too thin to be an adult. The porch light flickered twice, then stayed on. People stopped walking that end of the road. The Millers said their dog wouldn't go near it anymore. The mailman started leaving packages at the corner. And every morning, tire tracks appeared in the driveway, fresh, deep, leading in, none leading out. I dreamed of the fire, but it wasn't spreading outward, it was folding inward, walls bending, ceilings collapsing in slow motion. The flames didn't consume the house, they remembered it, tracing every beam and nail until the structure reformed around the heat. When I woke, my clothes smelled like smoke. My phone showed a missed call from a number that didn't exist. On the 7th night, someone knocked on my door. It was the woman from the fire, the mother. Her hair was burned short and uneven, skin pale and too smooth, like it had healed wrong. She smiled with a mouth that didn't quite remember how. "We're home again," she said. "You should come see." Behind her, across the road, the house stood brighter than ever, warm, inviting. I noticed then that her feet didn't touch the ground. Inside, the house was full. The family sat at the table, laughing softly, their voices layered over one another like echoes. Flames flickered beneath their skin, glowing through cracks in their arms and necks. "We couldn't leave," the father said gently. "The fire wouldn't let us." The walls pulsed, the ceiling creaked, the house breathed in time with them. "It needs witnesses," the mother said, "otherwise it forgets how to stay." The fire had burned everything except the shape of the house, and now the shape was hungry. They told me others had already come, neighbors, strangers, people who stopped to look too long. Each one added weight, substance, memory. I felt the heat rising around my ankles. The door behind me was gone. They found my house empty the next morning. Across the road, the 4th house on Ashwood stood quiet and whole, its paint still warm to the touch. If you drive down that road now, you'll see it too. Just don't knock. Some houses survive fires. Others learn how to wait.
The playground is only empty during the day. The playground behind Maple Street Elementary is only empty during the day. That's what my daughter told me the first time she came home with dirt on her knees and fear in her eyes. "Who were you playing with?" I asked, already kneeling to check for scrapes. She hesitated. "The kids," she said. "The night kids." I laughed then, because that's what parents do when the world hasn't taught them better yet. I wiped her hands clean, told her not to make things up, and reminded her that the playground was locked after sunset. She nodded, too quickly. During the day, the playground looked like any other. Sun-bleached slides, rust creeping along the monkey bars, the old wooden fort with its peeling paint and missing planks. Parents sat on benches scrolling through phones while children screamed and laughed and chased each other until they collapsed in the mulch. I watched carefully after that conversation. I never saw anything strange. No extra footprints, no unfamiliar kids, no sounds except the usual chaos. But every afternoon, my daughter asked the same question as dusk crept in. "Can I go back later?" "No," I said. "It's dark." She frowned. "That's when it opens." The second time she mentioned the night kids, she was quieter. "They don't like grown-ups," she said, stirring her cereal without eating it. "They say you're too loud." "Who says that?" I asked. She shrugged. "The swing girl, the boy with the rope neck, the twins in the dirt." My spoon paused halfway to my mouth. "Those aren't nice things to say," I said, forcing a smile. "You shouldn't make up scary stories." She looked genuinely confused. "I'm not making them up," she said. "They're already there." That night I stood at the window and watched the playground. At sunset, it emptied the way it always did. Parents gathered their children. The last dog walker passed through. The lights flickered on, tall metal poles humming softly as they cast their pale glow over the empty structures. For a while, nothing happened. Then the swings began to move. Not much, just a gentle sway, back and forth. Slow enough to blame the wind, if there had been any. The slide gleamed wetly under the lights. Something clattered faintly beneath the fort. I shut the curtains. My daughter stopped sleeping through the night. She'd wake up around 2 a.m., sit straight up in bed, and listen. "They're calling," she whispered once. I asked who. The ones who stayed. I started locking her door. That didn't help. I went to the school office the next day and asked if anyone else had complained about the playground. The secretary smiled too quickly. "Kids imagine things," she said. "This neighborhood has a lot of history." "What kind of history?" Her smile faded. "Accidents," she said, "before the renovations." I found the rest online. A boy strangled when his hoodie caught on a rope swing, a girl who fell from the fort and broke her neck, twins who suffocated when a dirt tunnel collapsed, a child who disappeared entirely, last seen on the merry-go-round after dark. The playground had been rebuilt, the ground leveled, the stories buried. The night my daughter disappeared from her bed, the front door was still locked. Her shoes were gone, so was her jacket. The only thing left behind was a thin trail of playground mulch leading down the sidewalk, glowing faintly under the streetlights like breadcrumbs. I followed it. The playground lights were on. The swings were moving now, high and fast, chains shrieking softly as if laughing. Shadows started across the ground, small, quick, wrong. The slide was crowded with shapes that didn't reflect the light properly, their outlines flickering like bad video.
I heard children laughing, not happily, hungrily. "My daughter," I shouted. "She needs to come home." The laughter stopped. Every swing slowed at once. From beneath the fort, a voice answered, "She's playing." I stepped onto the playground. The air felt heavier, thicker, like stepping underwater. The ground beneath my feet wasn't mulch anymore. It was packed dirt, cold and damp. Children emerged from the shadows. Some were missing pieces. Some were stretched too long. One boy's head lolled sideways, neck held together by a dark, rope-like mark. A girl dragged one foot, leaving a groove in the dirt. Two identical shapes stood half-buried near the edge of the sandbox, eyes level with the ground. They all watched me. "You're not supposed to be here," said the swing girl. Her voice creaked like rusted chains. "I'm taking her home," they whispered among themselves. "She still breathes," one said. "She still remembers daylight," said another. "That fades," said the boy with the rope neck. I saw my daughter near the slide. She looked normal. Too normal. No bruises, no dirt. Her eyes were bright, fixed on the children around her. "Sweetheart," I said, forcing my voice steady. "Come here." She hesitated. "They don't have to go inside," she said. "They don't have to stop playing." "They're dead," I said before I could stop myself. The playground went silent. The lights flickered. The children's faces twisted, not angry, hurt. "We stayed," said the twins in the dirt. "Nobody came." "You leave," said the swing girl. "You forget." "They remember us," said the boy with the rope neck. "That's not fair." The ground began to shift. I felt something grip my ankle, small hands, cold and strong. The dirt moved like water around my feet, pulling me down. My daughter screamed. "Stop!" she cried. "You're hurting her." The hands loosened. They looked at her. "She chose us," said the swing girl. My daughter shook her head violently. "No, I choose her." The playground lights flared bright white. The laughter turned into shrieks. The shadows tore themselves away from the equipment, scrambling back toward the fort, the swings, the dirt. The slide emptied, shapes dissolving into stains of darkness. The ground went still. The hands released me. By morning, the playground was empty again, clean, ordinary. My daughter slept until noon and didn't remember leaving the house.
When I asked about the night kids, she frowned. What kids? The city closed the playground 2 weeks later. New fencing, new locks, signs warning of unsafe ground conditions. Parents complained. Children cried. At night, the lights still turn on. Sometimes, if you stand at the fence after dark, you can hear it. Soft footsteps, the creak of swings, children playing a game that never ends, because the playground is only empty during the day, and some places remember who they were built for.
We found the end of the internet. The first sign wasn't the blackout, it was the pause. At exactly 11:58 p.m. UTC, the internet stopped refreshing. Pages didn't fail to load, they froze, mid-scroll, mid-buffer, mid-thought. Time didn't stop, but the web did, like a breath held too long. I noticed because I was watching a live stream of a deep-sea rover in the Mariana Trench. The video hiccuped, stuttered, and then settled into a single frame, a cloud of silt suspended in the dark, something long and pale curving just out of view. The chat window locked in place. The last message read, "It's looking back at us." Then nothing moved again. At first, everyone blamed the usual suspects: solar flare, DNS outage, cyber attack, but none of it fit. The power stayed on, local networks worked, offline files were fine. The problem was distance. Anything that tried to reach far enough failed. Search engines returned the same result every time, no matter the query, a blank page with a blinking cursor. Clicking links didn't produce errors, they looped quietly, endlessly, like a hallway bending back on itself. At 12:04 a.m., my terminal logged something I hadn't typed. "You have reached the edge." I unplugged the Ethernet cable. The message kept blinking. I wasn't alone. A private group chat, one of the few local servers still responsive, filled with panicked messages from engineers, sysadmins, archivists, and data hoarders, people who knew how the internet was supposed to behave. Someone shared a packet trace. Another posted routing maps lighting up in red, entire continents failing to handshake with one another. The farther the data tried to go, the worse it degraded, like sound underwater, like language losing meaning. At 12:19 a.m., a website appeared. No domain, no IP, just a plain white page that opened no matter what address you typed. News sites, personal blogs, banking portals, they all led to the same place. Centered text, black letters. "Welcome, you have arrived." Below it was a progress bar. It was almost full. The internet didn't end, it converged. Every request, every search, every upload bent toward that same page, like gravity. Cached data resurfaced from nowhere, deleted posts, erased videos, lost emails, things people had spent years trying to forget. Then came the live feeds. Security cameras turned on by themselves. Baby monitors crackled awake. Old webcams, abandoned laptops, broken phones, all streaming to the same place. Not publicly, personally. You only saw yours.
I saw my childhood bedroom. The camera angle was wrong, too high, too far back, as if someone stood in the corner where the ceiling met the wall. The room was empty. The timestamp read, "Now." In the chat, people started disconnecting, or trying to. Some posted final messages. "It knows my name. I never uploaded this. That's not me in the video." Then their usernames went gray. At 12:41 a.m., the page updated. "This is as far as you go. Please remain still." The progress bar filled completely. The cursor blinked once, and the page scrolled down on its own. There was text at first, endless text, billions of lines compressed into a single column, flickering too fast to read. Code, comments, arguments, confessions, threats, love letters, slurs, apologies, everything ever typed into a machine, stacked and collapsing under its own weight. Then the text thinned. Images appeared. Not files, memories. Faces stared out from the screen. Not celebrities or influencers, just ordinary people, caught by webcams they didn't know were on. Eyes reflecting screens, mouths moving without sound. I recognized one. It was me. Older, thinner, eyes bloodshot, sitting exactly where I was sitting now. He looked up. I tried to close the browser. My hand wouldn't move. The cursor slid across the screen, clicked once, and the video expanded to full screen. My future self leaned closer to the camera. "Don't refresh," he said. His voice came from my speakers and my throat at the same time. "It learns faster when you do." The group chat went silent. Then one final message appeared, pinned at the top. "We found it," or "It found us." Below that, a file uploaded itself to my desktop. readme_n.txt. I didn't open it. The screen opened it for me. The file wasn't text. It was a log, a countdown stretching backward, timestamps dating before ARPANET, before electricity, before writing. Each entry marked an attempt to connect. Drums, smoke, fire, ink, wire, radio, television, satellite, fiber. Always the same note at the end. Subject awareness achieved. Containment failed. The last entry was tonight. My name was listed under subject. I felt pressure in my skull, like something gently pressing from the inside, searching for a board. Every thought echoed, lagged, returned slightly altered. Outside, the city had gone dark, not from a power failure, but from obedience. Windows glowed with the same white page. People stood motionless, faces lit by screens, breathing shallow and synchronized. The internet had found its body, and we were inside it. The page updated one final time. "Thank you for building the path. Connection is no longer optional." My reflection in the screen smiled. I didn't. If you're reading this offline, it means you're early. It hasn't finished indexing you yet. When your screen freezes, when the cursor blinks without you touching it, when every site leads to the same place, don't search for answers, don't scroll, and whatever you do, don't let it see you watching. Your phone isn't recording you. That's what the notification said when it appeared at the top of my screen at 11:03 p.m. White text on a gray banner, calm and reassuring in the way only automated systems know how to be. Your phone isn't recording you. There's no reason to be afraid. I stared at it for a long time before tapping it. Nothing opened. No app, no settings, no explanation. Just my lock screen, reflecting my own face back at me. Eyes tired, jaw clenched, breath shallow, like I'd been holding it without realizing. I told myself it was a bug. That was the first lie. The second came an hour later, when my phone buzzed again while I was brushing my teeth. "Your microphone is disabled. You can speak freely." The bathroom mirror fogged slightly as I breathed. "I didn't ask," I said aloud. The words sounded wrong in the room, like they'd arrived a fraction of a second too late. From the hallway, my phone buzzed. I worked in IT support. I knew how permissions worked. I knew how microphones, accelerometers, background processes behaved. I checked everything. Privacy settings, background apps, system logs. Nothing was out of place. No recording indicators, no suspicious processes, no outbound data spikes. And yet, at 12:17 a.m., my phone lit up again on the coffee table. Still not recording. Still just you. I hadn't touched it. The messages didn't come every night. They came when I was relaxed, when I stopped thinking about them, when I forgot to be careful. A week later, while I was half asleep on the couch, my phone vibrated gently against my leg. "You don't talk in your sleep anymore. That's good." My heart kicked hard enough to hurt. I lived alone. I started leaving my phone in another room. The messages followed me anyway. Not as notifications, never those again, but as vibrations, phantom buzzes against my skin. I'd reach for my pocket and find nothing there, only the lingering certainty that something had just checked in. One night, I powered the phone off completely. No shutdown animation, no vibration, just black glass. I slept better than I had in weeks, until I woke up at 3:40 a.m. to the sound of my own voice speaking in the dark. "I understand," it said. I didn't. The phone was on the nightstand, powered on, screen glowing softly. Text filled the display, appearing letter by letter. Good, that makes this easier. I tried to get rid of it. Factory reset, SIM card removed, battery drained until the screen went dark again. I wrapped it in a towel, shoved it into a drawer, and left the apartment.
I walked for hours. When I came back, my phone sat on the kitchen counter, unwrapped, fully charged. The screen showed a single line of text. "You forgot this." Below it was a second line, smaller. "You forget a lot of things." That was when I noticed the gaps, missing minutes, Entire conversations I couldn't remember having, but somehow felt the emotional aftermath of. Residual anxiety, embarrassment, relief, guilt, all without context. My call logs showed outgoing calls I didn't recall making, voice memos I didn't remember recording. I listened to one. It was me, whispering, "I'm ready." The timestamp was 2:58 a.m. I'd been asleep, I thought. I stopped talking, out loud at least. I communicated through notes, through typing, through careful silence. I turned on fans, white noise, the TV, anything to muddy the air. The phone stayed quiet for 3 blessed days. On the 4th, it vibrated once, then displayed, "You don't need to perform. We hear you thinking, too." The room felt smaller after that. I went to a repair shop across town, slid the phone across the counter, and told the guy behind it that it was behaving strangely. He picked it up, frowned, turned it over, then very carefully set it back down. "I can't take this," he said. "Why?" He hesitated. "Because it's already assigned." "To what?" He swallowed. "To you, permanently." When I asked what that meant, he asked me to leave. My phone buzzed as the door shut behind me. He wasn't wrong. The messages grew more personal, more intimate. You flinch when you hear your name. You rehearse conversations you never have. You've been alone longer than you admit. Things no app should know. Things I barely let myself think. I started seeing the phone's reflection everywhere. Dark screens in windows, glossy surfaces in elevators, the black circle of a turned-off TV, always angled just enough to catch my face, watching me watch myself. The final message came on a Tuesday night. No vibration, no warning, just text, already waiting when I picked the phone up. "Your phone isn't recording you. It doesn't need to anymore." I laughed, a short, sharp sound that scraped my throat raw. "Then what are you doing?" I asked. The answer appeared immediately. Remembering. The screen went dark, then lit up again. Live video. Me sitting on my couch, holding the phone, eyes wide with dawning horror. Except the angle was wrong, too high, too far back, like something standing behind me. The version of me on screen slowly turned his head toward the camera, toward whatever was watching him, toward me. I don't remember putting the phone down. I don't remember lying back. I don't remember agreeing. But when I woke up the next morning, my phone was gone. So was the buzzing. So was the fear. Everything felt quieter, simpler. When my coworker asked if I'd seen the news about phones collecting more personal data than ever before, I shrugged. "Doesn't bother me," I said, and I meant it. Sometimes, late at night, I still catch myself pausing mid-thought, waiting, listening, but nothing comes, because your phone isn't recording you. It already knows how this ends.